Hey everyone, welcome to Boldly Becoming. I'm Angie Mercier, a retired superintendent of education turned executive leadership coach. After 31 years working within the system, I'm now dedicated to helping us speak and live our personal truth, all while leading ourselves and others. Alongside my inspiring guests, we'll share thoughts and stories of authenticity, courage, and transformation. Boldly Becoming is for you if you know that you are meant for more and you're looking for a little extra heart and soul to help you navigate the way. Let's dive in. I have this sticky note on my desk, and on the sticky note are three words, only three words: patience, empowerment, and surrender. These three words have literally become anchors for me. They are three words that I wrote down individually as things that I need to remember in my journey on learning coaching, things I need to learn on this journey of personal growth and transformation. And they were very separate to me, but they were three areas of focus that I really wanted to dial into. And they stay there, and I'm even talking about them in this podcast. That's how important they are to me. Patience, I believe, is a daily practice. I don't believe it's something that I was born with. Trust me, it's something I have had to work on and I continue to work on every single day. And, along with patience comes this whole notion about waiting. And when is waiting good? When does it serve us? And when is waiting not serving us in terms of where we want to get to? But waiting is a universal human experience, right? We all encounter it in so many different situations every single day. So today I want to talk about both those things, patience and waiting. And we'll dive into the other two around empowerment and surrender for a bit as well. But the real theme of today is what is patience and waiting, and what is the difference between them, and what I've really been learning about both. So let's start by really getting clear on what impatience feels like. And I want you to kind of get into your body and imagine you're in a situation where you typically feel very impatient. And you know those situations that I'm talking about right now. The ones where you're frustrated, where your level of irritation, climbs from a 2 to a 10 in no time flat. Whether you are feeling like you're rushed or you're hurried and people aren't keeping up to your schedules, especially I used to remember that as I had a schedule to keep and my kids weren't on my schedule, but they didn't know that. And anyway, that's another story, of course, but you can relate if you have children who you're trying to keep on your schedule. It doesn't always work. And impatience is really about us wanting control of a situation and not really like, I guess it's more like wanting control of a situation but really knowing we have no control over the situation. So here are a couple examples. I already gave one examples about our kids trying to keep up to us, but these are maybe personal examples. I'll just say, okay. Waiting in line. Like, is there anybody else out there who, when you're at Costco or at your local grocery store, do you try to find the line that's the shortest, the quickest, and then inevitably you get into the line that is not the shortest? Something happens, you have to go send someone out into the aisles, and it is not the shortest. So waiting in line can create impatience. Traffic and sitting in traffic can create impatience. I know my husband always says, I'd rather be taking the longer route and still moving than sitting in traffic at a standstill. And when we sit in traffic, sometimes we start to think about what we're going to be late for, and that can create a lot of impatience. But again, it's not anything that we can control. If you're waiting for an appointment and whoever you're waiting for the appointment with, is running behind, that can create impatience, especially if you have something following a meeting or another appointment that you have to get to or something else in your schedule. That can create a lot of impatience. And I had one just today which may or may not have been the impetus for this actual podcast. I was in a coaching meeting, and during that coaching meeting, my smoke alarm decided it was going to start to beep. And it was beeping and it was very annoying. And then the security panel started to chime in as well. So I had the beeping of the smoke alarm and then the chiming of the security panel. And so when I called the security company, it was so challenging. The very first, I'm going to say probably 15 minutes we spent verifying the account while I'm going crazy with these noises in my head. And then we finally got to it, and we finally got to the root of the problem, but I was on the phone for 45 minutes trying to rectify this whole smoke alarm. It was just replacing the batteries, but it was causing a whole host of other things. So, it was just that small thing, but I was impatient, partially because I was hangry as well. I needed my lunch, but getting rid of the beeping was more important to me than eating my lunch right at that time. So I was feeling impatient because I was also getting hangry. I needed to eat. It wasn't one of my finer moments, but I ended the call on a more pleasant note, showing gratitude for the person who had helped me. But you know, and I know that there are often triggers that we can all get sucked into that causes great irritation when we are feeling like we're waiting on the phone too long. So I'd love to know, what are the situations where you're impatient? So, what are the triggers? What comes up for you? What kinds of feelings come up when you're feeling impatient? And if you want to, just push pause for a minute on the podcast. And even if you're still driving, push pause and just think about that for a minute. Just get clear in your own mind where and when impatience shows up and how it shows up in your body. It can show up in our bodies as stress. We definitely can feel the stress of the situation as we become more and more impatient. It creates tension, probably tension in our physical bodies. We become reactive as opposed to really thoughtful about our responses with people. And honestly, what it does for you is nothing. You lose your peace. And who wants to be at a loss for peace? I'd rather have more peace in my life than less. So when you're feeling impatient, it's really saying to you, this should be happening faster. This should be different than they are. Come on, why is it like this? It's really affecting me. And all those little voices that come with impatience. But again, that's where you can bring more awareness to your triggers when you hear those little voices and then learn how we can interrupt the cycle. So let's turn impatience on its head and let's really talk about what we're really aiming for, what we're really striving for, and that is patience. And what patience really is. First of all, patience is not a passive process. Patience doesn't mean that we're just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, waiting. Patience is presence. When we're being patient with somebody or something, we're still very much in the situation, beside the person. We are with them, we are present, and maybe we're just a bit more quiet. And we are regulating our emotions because that person needs us to regulate our emotions. If you're at the ticket counter at Air Canada or another airline and everybody is getting upset with that person at the ticket counter, just by you regulating your own emotions, you can do a world of good for that person and bring them back down. So, emotional regulation is really part of being patient. It's really choosing a response rather than a reaction. And patience creates that space for the people that you're around, but it also gives you time for your own thinking. I can even feel my voice going slower as I'm talking about it. Like just talking about patience brings me a sense of peace, and patience allows us to really stay grounded in the moment and invites that deeper listening and paying attention to whatever's happening. And really, patience is about trust. trusting that it's going to work out. And we're going to talk about more about that in a second. And one of the reasons why patience is at the top of my list is because it is something that I'm really, really learning about in my coaching practice. Patience in coaching is about believing that the client, the person I'm coaching, is fully capable and whole as a human being and as a person. They don't need me to rush them in the growth process. What they need is they need me to be there, to be a deep listener. They need me to be present, and they need me to just be so patient that their growth will happen on their time with me as the guide. So it's really resisting that urge to fix, which for so many years was what I did: fix problems, solve issues, solve problems, but really trying not to be the fixer. Not even just not trying. I am not going to be the fixer anymore. I don't need to be the fixer anymore. So we need to, as coaches, trust that our clients are on their own timeline and trust that their timelines are exactly where they need to be in terms of their own growth and transformation. So that's why it's on the top of my sticky, because it's something that I have really, 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 three words, three reallys, really been working at. Okay, four reallys. Okay, so but back to my sticky note with all three words: patience, empowerment, and surrender. But once we're three separate words, I want to talk to you about how they all connect for me. They belong together, and I've started to see that. Patience, as I've said over and over already today, is about staying present in the situation and with the person you're with. And empowerment is about trusting yourself, but also helping others to trust themselves. And then surrender is, of course, releasing that control. And when we get into that feeling of needing control, that's when impatience starts to bubble. Sometimes we try to force outcomes, right? We try to get what we want. We try to rush the process. We try to get to where we need to be at the right time, but we can't because of the traffic. And then we become impatient and frustrated. And honestly, it's exhausting and it costs us our peace. So, how can we learn to trust the process, trust the timing of the universe, and trust ourselves? When we're being patient, we're really waiting without any kind of judgment of what the outcome will be. But what about that kind of waiting that actually keeps us stuck? And you'll know what I mean when I say, I'm waiting for the perfect time. I'm waiting to have more confidence. I'm waiting when I'm more certain about things. I'm waiting until I have more money. I'm waiting until everybody else thinks it's a good idea and will support and approve of it. I'm waiting for the right conditions. I'm waiting for retirement. Waiting sometimes can really be all about avoiding something, or it could be about the fear of moving forward, something we talked about in our last podcast. And then we disguise that fear as we need more time to prepare. And it's really our perfectionism that's really disguised as planning and preparation. We need more time. We need more time. I need to prepare. I need to be ready. But really, we're just avoiding something that maybe is a bit scary. Life can become one big waiting room or one long line that you have to wait into. And I don't know about you, but waiting rooms and long lines are not my favorite places. So I want to share a story with you that just happened this week again, actually on the weekend. And it was about a decision that I was contemplating waiting to do or wait, or should I do it now? And it's really about me signing up for another course, more learning to deepen my coaching. And I was thinking about it, and I really felt strongly called that this course will be so helpful for me in terms of my own growth and transformation, but for my clients. And so I really feel like this is something I need to do. But I had this little voice on my shoulder that was almost like trying to talk me out of it and was saying, do you really need to do that? Got too much on your plate right now. Are you sure right now is the right time? It's really expensive. Like, do you have the money for that right now? And that is the kind of voice that was trying to talk me out of it. And so for some of us, that little voice does convince us that maybe it's not time. And then all of a sudden, I heard a post from the facilitator, my dear friend Marcia, and it flipped something for me. And I realized that I don't have time to waste. Why would I wait for a better time, for more money, for less on my plate? Why would I wait for that? I feel it now, and now is the perfect time for me to do it. I'm 60 years old. When I think about the years that I have left in coaching, and I'm not thinking about it in terms of any end date. I am really not. If I can coach well into my 80s, I'll be happy, happy, happy. But when I think about where I'm at, I think I don't have time to waste. Why would I wait for that? I want to learn it. I'm ready now. So I talked to that little voice. I acknowledged it was there and then sent it on its merry way. So you may not be 60 listening to this, but I also want you to hear this, that there is no perfect time. There is never a perfect time for you to start what you're waiting to start. Just do it, as Nike says. Just do it. It's time. There's never the perfect time. So here's what I want you to really think about. And again, you can push pause if you want to and really just give this some thought. Is there something you've been waiting to start? That you sincerely have been waiting for a better time to start? Is there a dream, a decision, conversation, or some kind of change in your life that you've been delaying? And then I want you to ask yourself, and this is a really, really critical question. What is waiting costing me? And it could be in dollars and cents, but what else is it costing you in your life? I want you to get clear on that. So maybe you want to push pause, rewind, listen to those questions again. It's really important that you take some time to think about those. Okay, now let's be clear. There are definitely times when waiting is wise. Your challenge is to discern wise waiting from stuck waiting. I'll get to that in a minute. You'll know what I mean. Not all waiting is avoidance because you're feeling stuck and you're avoiding something. Not all waiting is stuck waiting. Sometimes waiting is actually wisdom. Sometimes waiting gives you more time for clarity and creates that opportunity for you to be reflective and be clear about what your next steps are. Sometimes waiting can even reveal better outcomes because sometimes the timing matters and it's up to us to discern when that is. Different seasons of life require different things of us. And we need to respond to different seasons of life, for example. Sometimes we need to allow things to unfold naturally without forcing outcomes. We really have to be able to discern that, though. When do we move forward with action? And when are we pushing? When are we waiting because we're stuck? And when are we waiting because we need more clarity and we truly need more time, not to be perfect, because there's something else that's standing in the way? That's up to you, is really that discernment. I want to share a story with you about a time that I felt I rushed and I wish I hadn't. Back in 2013, I was an assistant superintendent at the board, and I loved that role. It was my first time being at the system level and being part of system level decisions and system level work, and I was loving it. Then we learned in the spring of 2014 that two positions were actually being cut because of funding changes. So I was heading back into a school to be a principal. And I was very upset. I knew deep in my heart I wanted to stay at the Board of Education. I wanted to be part of central staff, and I wanted to be at the system and make system level change. So what I did was I applied and interviewed for a role that I didn't really want because I wanted so badly to stay at the system. So I was kind of forcing that square peg into the round hole, and it didn't work, and I didn't get the job. Thank goodness. And I went back to a school, and it was so great, and I am so glad that that happened. I would have been better served by not applying and not causing myself so much stress. It was a very stressful time, not knowing where I was going to go or what I was going to do or what my job was going to be. And so if I just had allowed that to go in a natural way without forcing that square peg into the round hole, I would have been in a much better position. Because going back into a school as a principal was such a gift. It gave me more experience, I had more connections, and then from there, I got into my dream job, my superintendent of education role, and it really revealed to me that if I had been more patient, and I was patient actually through that year, then knowing that something would be coming, or I shouldn't say knowing that something would be coming, but believing that something would be coming. Something good was coming out of what I was doing. And it revealed something even better than I could have even imagined. And it wouldn't be the last time that I did that. I shared about that in a previous podcast episode, pushing myself into an old way of being because I felt like it was the next step for me. But now I am fully surrendering. You can say surrendering to the universe, but I am surrendering to God's timing for me, and that feels so good. Again, it's the third word on my sticky note. So, here is my wisdom and my recommendation for you today. Don't rush everything, but don't delay everything. Practice patience with so much presence, and don't force action. Move forward, but stay open to possibility. Trust yourself enough to know when you are patiently waiting and when you are impatiently trying to control the outcome. That's where discernment comes in. Patience is not about getting what you want faster. It really is about who you become while things are unfolding. The process is always what we talk about. Trust the process. Waiting becomes so powerful when it's intentional. Waiting becomes powerful when it's rooted in trust rather than in fear and avoidance. Life isn't happening after the waiting. Life is happening right now in the waiting. And perhaps that's what I've been learning most lately. That boldly becoming doesn't always require bold action. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it requires the courage to wait, the wisdom to be patient, and the trust to believe that growth is still happening even when nothing appears to be moving. Couple final questions for you before we sign off. Where in your life are you being called to act? Where in your life are you being called to wait? And how might patience help you know the difference? Until next time, keep boldly becoming. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If something from this episode sparked a shift in you, I would love to hear about it. Please share your biggest takeaway or aha moment on social media and tag me so I can celebrate your growth along with you. And if this show is adding value to the person you are becoming, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to leave a 5-star review. Your support helps us reach more leaders who are ready to speak their truth, and I am deeply grateful for every single one of you in this community. Remember, this life isn't about reaching a destination. It's about loving the process of who you are becoming every step of the way. I'll see you next time.